Hi, Julia. Hi, Larry. Hi, Lynn. Of course, hi, Ralph.
Hey.
I don't think they heard me, so I'm going to say it again. Hello, Julia. Hi, Larry. Hi, Lynn. It's so good to see you guys. Julia, can I make you a co-host? Are you going to be hanging out for a minute?
Yep.
Great. That's so great. Well, we're so excited for this call today. And if I could get this to work, it'd be great. I'm really looking forward to Jim, to our speaker, Jim. He'll be here in just a few minutes, I'm hoping. And I'm just really excited to hear from everybody and to see, what they came up with, But before we do that, let's do a marma. Is everybody okay with that if we do a marma? Great. Let's do the focus one. I'm still got half my brain in work and half my brain, here. So I'm just going to do that. So let's take a deep breath in to the count of 6. So breathe in when you push in and breathe out. 2, out. 3, out. 4, out. 5, out. 6, and out. Sorry, I was letting people in while we were doing that. I love seeing all these people come in. Hello, Christelle, or Chris, Christine. Hi, Bridget. Hi, Renara. So good to see you guys. Now, I am the type of person that loves to have the microphones off. I love to just have this little conversation, very open mic and very round table, kitchen table style. So whenever you guys have something to say, I like, and oh, darn it. Did we lose Lynn because I said mic's off? I hope not. Anyway, so wonderful. So a couple of weeks ago, we were talking and we just said, what has everybody done? So I'll just tell you what I did. The minute that I got off the call, I thought, you know what? I need to find what's going on in my area. I need to, when Dr. Clint was here in Atlanta for the Pulse Clinic, we asked people to bring blankets so that we could go put blankets on the homeless in the area. But the Pulse Clinic ran very late because we slipped in a lot of people to do the Pulse reading for Clint. But so we didn't get to put the blankets on them, but Colleen knew somebody at the American Legion who has a homeless program that he developed. He's the founder of it, and she gave him the blankets, and they were very warmly received. Now, what he said, or so basically, when I got off the call, I decided to give him a phone call and have a conversation with him to see exactly what were some of the things that would be very beneficial. And as he went through his regiment, which I'm sure that when he gets here, we will hear from him. But it was so methodical and so full of love that I just thought that he would be really great to be able to have on the call today. But it looks like he's not here yet. So let's go around. So Ralph, would you like to start? Tell me where you are, how you are, what's going on.
Well, final exams next week. What I've been noticing is the sporting store, like when people go in and they buy sneakers, they put them in the trash. The old sneakers in the trash.
So, Ralph, it's breaking up just a little bit. Do you have a little bit better reception somewhere?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better. Yep.
Hear me better?
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is going in the trash can and getting the sneakers out and putting them on the bus stops for the people because they're still wearable. And it's customary for a lot of shoe stores to do that. You go in and buy brand new sneakers, and the old ones are not really. They're still still usable. So I've been seeing a lot of that going on, and at this one particular store, The other thing is I noticed that scabies seems to be another one of the problems with these people. The
Okay, so
ones that,
can you explain that to me? I don't know what that means.
scabies is a disease like when you don't change your clothes for a great number of days, you develop a it's like a rash of some kind, which it is contagious. It can spread from one person to the next. They don't change their clothes for like days on end. It might be weeks, days, or whatever. And they scratch a lot. So um, I noticed that it's a lot of people out here that have that. You know, they're scratching and itching, and they have, you know, scars and whatnot. And that's basically what it is scabies.
Okay.
Um,
So you've
and that's
noticed that they've had a lot of that. So what would be the solution for that? I mean, I'm sure just bathing and things like that.
bathing and cleaning clothes is basically what's needed because I remember at the temple we had a Chinese guy that came in and he had scabies, and he went to a temporary shelter, and they noticed that he had it really bad, so they had to burn his clothes, and they admitted, you know, he was admitted to a hospital, and everybody that was in the immediate vicinity of him, they were also taken to a hospital for examination to make sure that it hadn't really become too contagious with them. It's very contagious.
So is it like a weeping wound? Tell me what happens.
It's not a wound of any kind. It's just like, it's almost like you have invisible microcosm worms on your body, and you itch and you scratch, and your clothes are real dirty. You haven't changed them. You haven't taken them off. You haven't taken nothing off, shoes, socks, and nothing off over a period of days. And you know, they have to burn the clothing. Clothing has to be burned. If the person is admitted to a hospital, um, the clothes have to be burned. And then they are bathed in some type of solution of some kind to help them be alleviated of that, of those little microcosms that are on their microorganisms that might be on their bodies. So they stay in the hospital for a little while.
So Ralph, I have a question. If is looking at, we kind of identified that's one problem. As far as a solution, if there was a way to provide, you know, more clothing and shoes for them, are they mentally willing to accept and change their clothes and learn new ways of bathing, or are they kind of stuck in their mindset?
It's I would say that's 50-50 chance, because like they'll change their clothes, but you still got scabies. Changing the clothes is not going to resolve the problem. They have to be, most of the time the individuals end up in the hospital. They have to go to the hospital for treatment. You know, and once they come out of the hospital, then the ones that are coherent enough to um, you know, bathe regularly or shower regularly, you know, they will proceed to do that. But the ones that are like mentally perturbed, forget it.
So so really to alleviate that, Ralph, would be to be able to help them find a place to shower or find a safe place to be. I mean,
Not so
but
much a safe place to be. It's like, it's just hygienics. It's hygienics because we all knew Johnny, who came to the temple. This happened, I think, in 2015. Johnny would come to the temple. We all knew him. He was very devoted, and he was living on the streets. We gave him clean clothes, you know, all of us, but he would never change his clothes. He would never wash up. He would just go sleep where he slept. So like another friend in the temple who was staying in a temporary shelter took him down to this particular shelter. And the administrators noticed that he had scabies. He had a bad case of it.
mm,
And that's when they took him to the hospital, and the hospital burned every stitch of clothing that he had on was destroyed. And they gave him new clothes at the hospital. He stayed in the hospital for about a day or two, until he got cleansed. So from that point on, I think the temple, some of us in the temple helped him get into some type of housing. He was Chinese, we didn't know where his family was. He was coherent. He was real smart. He came to the temple one day. I think his blood pressure was like 190 over 100 and something.
Mm.
And
Yeah, health issue.
One of the guys that I know took him to the hospital. And from there, the hospital put him in an assisted, like he went from there to another facility, and then they got him into an assisted living facility.
Okay.
Last time I saw him, he was doing pretty good. He had clean clothes on,
Yeah.
Blood pressure still was up, but he seemed to be, pretty happy, where he was,
Oh, good. Well, I just see that Jim is on the call, and he may be able to shed some light on this. So Jim, hello, welcome. Welcome to the Ancient Secrets Foundation's Humanity Call. We have Larry on the call and Christine on the call, Lynn, Ralph, Julia, Renara, and Bridget. And then we have many, many other people who watch the video afterwards. So Jim, we're so glad that you're able to make it today. I will introduce you in a moment, but will you be able to join us with your video? I don't know if you can hear me. Hello, Jim. Let's see if he can unmute.
Is Jim's our speaker today, right? He's a guest.
He is.
And tell us about his background.
Yes. So Jim grew up in the North. He grew up in North New York, and he was raised in a military family, and he actually did serve as well. I believe it was in the Marines. And no, he was in the Army. And when he was helping his dad with, well, he served in the military, and he served for about 9 years, and he had an honorable discharge and joined the reserves. He then went to corporate America and had a very good corporate life, and then he retired. And after he retired, he was helping his father get some benefits for the VA, and he was asking, he could see some issues. He was like, what can I do to help? And he saw that there was a problem with homelessness, and he just, for something, it just kind of grabbed him, and he said, this is what I'm doing. And so he created a foundation. And Jim, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you hear me now? I think so.
Yeah. Will we be able to have you on video today?
As soon as I pull off the road, yes.
Sounds good. So he launched Cherokee County Homeless Veterans Program, which is in the Atlanta area. And they help with short-term housing, donating cars to veterans in need. They do food, clothing, furniture, toiletries. They do veteran claims. They help them with the veteran claims, veteran fly fishing, and veteran home repair. So when I talked with him, he's had, Jim, you've had, how many years have you had experience with this?
9, coming up on 9 years.
I could just tell he was just such a wealth of knowledge. I just felt like we all needed to hear from him and what he had to say. So Jim, would love to just turn this over to you. Thank you for joining our call today.
No, not a problem. I'll be pulling off at a parking lot here shortly. I'm just coming from, we picked up 2 cars today, gave one to another homeless veteran agency that had a vehicle went down, and we expecting 2 more, and I'm just coming off the fly fishing program. We're just finishing that for the day, so it's been a hectic day. One of the things is we focus on veteran homelessness. So there's a lot of parallels between civilian homeless and veteran homelessness, but the veteran homelessness has a lot more federal and agency than any you're going to find in the state. So there's a lot of differences between what we do normally than our counterparts at Must Ministries or some of the churches do. So the biggest thing we do is we actually triage the veterans as they commit. So we have processed around 800 veterans in the 8 years we've run this thing. So we get over 100 a year that we're working with. The biggest issue we're having right now is the evictions, like most other people. Because once you get evicted, you have no help at all. And people are trying to get rent assistance. The programs aren't working very well. The counties aren't very set up very well. So people are slow in getting it. Some of the apartment complexes out there want to force people to get out. We're seeing what's right now a phenomena called a 3 times, 5 times rent to income ratio that's out there that's preventing other people from getting in. And by that is in Cherokee County, the cheapest 1-bedroom apartment's $1138. If you want to qualify for that rent, you have to qualify almost at about a $3,500 a month income. If you are a 100% disabled veteran, you only make $3,000 a month, so you don't qualify for about 1,500 apartments. We are trying to get that fixed at the state level and put some pressure on, but these are the kind of things you're going to find that affect veterans as well as civilians.
Well, Jim,
But one of the-
before you rush off of this topic, I thought that this was very well worth talking about, because I was unaware of the situation. So basically what I understood Jim was saying is that, there are people who cannot afford their rent. And if they get evicted, they're put on a list. And am I correct? And Jim, please explain it to me, or please
Oh,
explain
sure.
it, probably.
Sure, what's
explain it
happening
better.
right now. So if you can't afford to pay for your rent right now, the government passed around a $25 billion rent assistance program that was designed to be run by the big counties, 200,000 or more, or in the case of Georgia Department of Community Affairs, which handles the small counties, and they will pay up to $15,000 worth of back rent. So you need to apply for that plus utility. So that's the good news. So but it takes a while for it to apply. You got to have all sorts of forms and paperwork that have to be filled out, and it varies by county. But if you do in fact apply for that program and you still get evicted, because what you'll find out there is your magistrate court, which handles your county evictions, is not tied to these rental programs. And people we've seen veterans who have had basically numbers or certificates for the rent eviction still get evicted. Now, what's happening from the landlord side, since they're out of money, they're trying to basically run away what they consider the low income renters they've got in their property. They are raising the rent, and now they're also raising the requirement to get in to qualify for rent. And it's driving people out of the business. So if you do get an eviction on your record, nobody's going to touch you to rent. That's one of the problems out there. It shows up on your record. It'll also show up on your credit rating. And once you're on that list, and we've got over 100 veterans that we know of in our area that have already been on that list, they can't find a place. We had one woman in particular, one veteran over in Gwinnett County, who the wife was in the hospital having her leg amputated from diabetes while the sheriff showed up and evicted her kids and her husband from their apartment. And she's now been 4 months and can't find a place to live. So they're living in hotel month to month. So it's a very dire situation. You need to figure out what's out there. You need to somehow get a hold of your state senators, your state, not the federal guys, because they're not going to do anything for you. But you have to try to go to the states and county and say, well, how are you guys going to fix this? How are you going to get people who need apartments, need housing off the streets and back into apartments, because they have nowhere to go. And right now, if you're not aware of it, this is the worst time of year to be homeless. You're getting into the holiday period. So mental health are issues that are becoming more and more prevalent. Once you get past the pretty much October 31st in November, you are into the holiday season. So you're going to see a lot more, suicides. You're going to see a lot more mental health issues, and you need to partner with somebody that can do that. And right now for us, the VA is not cutting and we're having conversations with them, because we've already had 7 attempted suicides and 3 suicides in the last year in the county I'm in, all combat vets. So we're very concerned about what's going to happen when that hits when those guys that have just gone through evictions. And in the next 6 months, we're anticipating the military to downsize. They call it a rift. Those will be more people out on the street with no jobs. It's going to be this next year is going to be a very tough situation for the housing and homeless market out there. If you're not, just across the board, veteran, non-veteran.
Well,
So if there's
Jim-
so that's a national phenomenon. This is right now, I mean, this is a national crisis. There's somewhere between 7 and 13 million people that are affected by the rent eviction process.
You brought up something else. I thank you for that. I know that this is such an issue with the evictions. It really is. But you also brought up another point about where people are living in hotels, and you had expressed some concern there with a problem with that. Would you go ahead and share with us that situation?
Yeah, the hotel environment, hotel industry goes by 28-day rental. So what they've done is a lot of them have let it slide in the last year, but you cannot go past 28 days on a single rental. And what they will do is they will evict you out of the hotel. And I have a corporate contract with Motel 6. They still do this. We put a person in there, they're only going to stay there for 28 days. Then they have to be out of the hotel for 7 before we can put them back in. And the reason for that is what's called homesteading. They don't want people to be homesteading in there for months and months and months and then claim that they now legally reside there. That's how the rental industry, the hotel industry gets controls their inventory, what they've got. So when someone says, well, I can't, I'm just 28 days, you need to watch when these people are in there. Because again, now you got to find an alternate hotel or a campground or someplace else to put these in people, but they can't stay there past 28 days. So that's going to be enacted. It's already out there. All 50 states have already done this for a couple of years. Just no one was really pushing it. But now all your small and medium hotels are changing management to do that.
So I'm going to ask Ralph a question with that, Jim, if that's okay.
Sure.
Ralph, is that something that you've been seeing? Oh, I'm sorry, I muted you. Oh, you're muted. Ralph? You're muted. Can you unmute?
Yeah.
There we
Okay.
go.
I know a security guard that told me that he went through the same process here in Los Angeles. That he had to leave and he was hoping to get the same room back after 7 days. And management told him, well, it wasn't going to be any guarantee that he would get the same room back or if there was going to be any vacancies at that particular time. So he moved on to another apartment, situation, hotel situation, realistically.
Yeah. So it just sounds like they get into this hotel, they're there for 28 days, and then they have to pack up, either go into the woods or they have to pack up everything that they own, wait a week, and then they can come back. And I'm sure different states or different places will be, it'll be different, but it just is very disruptive. And especially if they have small children, it just is a challenge.
No, it is.
So-
It is. And you got schools to consider how you're going to handle schools. We work with the school system here trying to get people in. Transportation's a problem. We're in one of those rural areas where we don't have mass transit. So, it becomes an issue for us in transit. We, different hotels have different cost structures. So in the summertime right now, we run into issues where, the hotels are pretty much booked solid for the weekend for parties, weekends, weddings, whatever's going on. So it's if we, if that person doesn't work with us closely on telling us when they're, where they're at and what's going on, they could find themselves, on the street for a weekend, when they shouldn't. But it's very tough now managing people more than you have in the past.
So Jim, you have a lot of experience, and I want to ask some of these people. I want to ask Maria. Maria, thank you so much for coming on the call. I'm not specifically asking you, but I'm asking the group. If you guys have questions that you'd like to direct to Jim, he's such a wealth of knowledge here. Julia, did you have any questions before you left that you'd like to ask?
First of all, where is Jim right now? Where are you, Jim? Where are you located?
I'm located in about 40 miles north of Atlanta. I run Cherokee County Homeless Veteran. I also run the Vetlanta Homeless Pillar, which covers all the way down to Atlanta. And I'm now on the state of Georgia. I was just appointed by the governor to be on the state of Georgia's Home Trust for Homeless team that's out of the Department of Community Affairs. So we pretty much see everything that goes on from where I'm in North Georgia all the way down into Atlanta and South Atlanta.
Wow. It's amazing. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's just amazing. I guess my biggest question for our little group here is we know there's a lot of problem with the scabies, with the food, with the shelter. You know, there's a lot of problem with homeless here also in Utah. And my question for Jayna and others is, what is our objective here in taking the information we can from Jim and saying, what can we do? What can we do? What is the solution? What is some small way that we can make a difference here? What would be your recommendation, Jim? I mean, we just heard about Ralph explained to us that here there's a huge problem with scabies spreading throughout the homeless community. And, you know, and even if they were given new clothes and healed of all that, to change behavior and to change that problem, maybe only it would work for 50% of the people, even if you gave them everything they needed. So what are, you know, the problem is so huge and there are so many different layers of the homelessness here. What is a recommendation of, what is something that we could do to make a difference? I know we provide blankets for homeless, and what are some ideas of solutions that we could focus on?
Well, I can tell you, I'll give you one. If you are over 62 years old, doesn't matter if it's veteran, non-veteran, you should be working closely with your county senior services group, because we've got 20 senior living facilities in the county. And from a veteran coming in, because these people are now eligible for Social Security, they need to look at other veterans benefits that may be out there, other benefits to get these people in, start looking at senior living facilities. Someone who's 62 is not going to really work. So you need to say, all right, what's out there? Are there, and it varies by location as to what the cost is, but it's getting more expensive. But if you can start looking at those people and say, I can get them into senior homes, senior facilities, that's going to be one. And every county is going to have a senior services organization you should be working with. And they can provide some of the funding. They've got some programs. So that's one right there that we triage those people immediately to try to get them out. There's also a program called 811. It's a nationwide program. Very few people know about it. 811 is a program for disabled people. So if you have, for instance, I had a female veteran who has a disabled son. They were evicted. If you are between the ages of 20 and 60, you can qualify for the 811 program if you are disabled. And those are apartments that they may have across the state. You know, you have to find out which organization is running the 811 program here. If you want to find out, you can go to Georgia Department of Community Affairs, look for put in the search engine 811 housing. It'll come up. Those are housing units the state's paying for, that again, as long as they're within a certain disability, you can get them in there right away. So again, trying to figure out how to triage some of the people coming in to saying, you know, you've got a guy who's 55 years old, is completely disabled, living in a wheelchair, can't move. Where do we take him? Well, you're not going to get him in a hotel. He needs to be someplace where someone can take care of him. That's the place you can go there. If you've got aging veterans, you're going to have a veterans home that you can get them into. So again, work with your state Department of Veterans Services team to go ahead and get those people in there. That's one. Now, the toughest ones are the millennials, and because they don't want to tell you they need help. That's, you know, those are the biggest, doesn't matter if it's veteran, non-veteran, those guys are going to be tough to crack because they wait until the last minute to tell you they need help. And we struggle with that every day, trying to figure out how to help those guys.
Who is that again?
The millennials, the people that are right now between the ages of 24 and about 35. I mean, they have a tough concept as to what they need out there. Now, the two biggest things homeless people need: socks and a phone. You know, because if you lose sight of these guys, you don't know where they're going to be. They could be in Ogden one day, they can be in Provo the next day. These guys move around, and one of the things they need is someone to claim them as a home of record. The American Legion, from we work with our veterans, we become their home of record for everything that someone needs to send to them, from Social Security, DFACS, the Veterans Administration, because they need to be followed up on. And again, if someone's going to mail something to you, you don't have a home or a mailbox, you know, you got to have some place to get your mail. And unfortunately, you know, these guys without a home of record, they're lost because they don't know where they're going to get their paperwork for, and no one knows where they're going to live. But if you can somehow have an agency who say, listen, we'll put these guys as a home of record until they get a job, you can start tracking these people. But again, phone systems are their lifeline today.
Awesome. When I was first talking to Jim, he was talking about, we had to look at how the people are. So all the people are, they're mobile. So the things that they need have to be really light. They can't be heavy. They need food and hygiene, which is what Ralph was talking about. His organization, Jim's organization, creates a backpack. So this is something that we might be able to do as a community. So Jim, will you tell us a little bit about your female and male backpacks that you have available or that you do?
Sure. Realizing that the guy's mobility is a key for a homeless veteran. We did this with a college. If you go out and buy a homeless person a brand new sleeping bag, a brand new jacket, guarantee within 24 hours that's either going to be stolen or he or she's going to sell it. But what they need are basic human needs, and I'll forward it to Jayna, the information that's in there. We had female homeless and male homeless create this kit and put them in a room and said, here's what you need. Tell us what it is. Things like flashlights, first aid kits, socks, washcloth, the little soap that you get from the hotels, energy bars, and we vary the kits between springtime, summer and fall, because in the fall we put in hats and hand warmers that go into kits. But these are things that they can carry with them, and because most of them you're going to use a bathroom from a convenience store or a gas station, but they need to be able to keep clean. We also put ponchos in there and emergency blankets, which are the little space blankets that you have out there. Something that's going to be light that they can carry. It fits into a standard backpack you would give a kid for school, and everything goes into a gallon size or plastic Ziploc bags to keep them dry. But those kits, we give out hundreds a year, even to other counties and places where they need them, because that is the most, they need something that they're trying to stay alive. They need to clean. Never give them mouthwash because it's got alcohol. If the guy's an alcoholic, it's bad for him. No lotions of any type, because lotions are, they don't need the lotions, but basically soap, shampoo, toothpaste, toothbrush, basic hygiene needs, flashlight. And again, we'll give you the list of all that. And we get everything donated to us. We get the churches will give those items to us. We do a drive with a local radio station twice a year to get those materials. We just had a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout group come together. So there's a lot of people out there that travel that want to get rid of these things, and they'll give them to you for nothing. And it's very inexpensive to put these together. You go to Target, if you work with them, or you go to Kroger, places like that, you'll be able to get to the energy bars. You'll be able to get the backpacks. These guys pretty much donate them to you going forward. And, you need to have these. We keep them in our car so that if you drive down the road and see somebody, we hand it to them, whether they're veteran or non-veteran, because they need these basic items to live on.
So Jim, tell me about the backpack specifically. Does it matter? Is there a certain size that you get?
No, it's the kind of one you would buy for a kid for school, a medium-sized one. Don't get a huge one. It's small. It's, they're the things you would find just going in at a Target. A little, could be a cute one for a girl or guy, but, just something that they've got zip pockets for it, and they can put stuff into it. And the other thing is these guys need to make sure they've got their identification in a couple different places, because we find out we get a lot of veterans and homeless people that come to us. They've lost their ID, they've lost their records, they've been robbed. You need to make sure you can recreate those going forward. You can't get a birth certificate without a positive ID. If you are military, everybody was fingerprinted, so you can go to your local police and your sheriff's department and ask them to fingerprint you and run it, and they will come back and tell you yes. They will actually walk over to the health department to get a birth certificate. We've done that a number of times here. The other agencies do not make it easy. It's one of those, you can't get a driver's license to get a picture ID. You can't get, it's one after another, and these guys get very frustrated. But there are answers to get around some of these things out there if you work with your local law enforcement as well.
So overall, what is the basic goal of your organization as far as how do you handle? What is your insight?
Well, two things we do is we need to verify they're a veteran in order to give them the services. Because again, in our situation, we can't have a misstep. For instance, the county above us had a collection for what they thought was a veteran and his wife. Gave them about $8,600 only to find out the guy wasn't a vet and skipped town. That puts a bad taste in people's mouth. So when they're asking you to verify they're homeless, you need to make sure they're not getting Social Security, they're not getting their other stuff out there. And there are a lot of scammers out there. I've got a couple right here, one who's not too far from me here, who, we put him on the list that, yeah, this guy calls every week. We'll get a call about this guy. He's down here panhandling. He's not a veteran. He's not homeless, but he's looking for someone to give him money going forward. You need to vet him. If they don't pan out, you need to tell people that this person here is not who he says he is. But it's very important that if we're in the publicity business, whether we like it or not. We're looking for people to donate money, donate food, donate stuff. If you don't control it correctly and the press gets a hold of it, you're pretty much, your program is dead in the water. You can look at Wounded Warrior program. They're spending 80 cents of every dollar on administrative fees, 20 cents of the dollar on the actual veteran. That's flipped from what it's supposed to be. So that's one thing you've got to watch out for. The two is our goal is we process all of our vets within 96 hours. We go through claims. We have a community clinic here that does free work for us on the veterans, especially females. Typically a female hasn't seen a doctor in 6 to 8 years if she's homeless. They need to get into the care. Once we vet them for the 96 hours, our goal is to get them in stabilized within 90 days and out of the program back on the streets, productive within 9 months. Now,
Okay.
if we have a drug and alcohol, we refer them out to a drug and alcohol. We will not handle drug and alcohol veterans in our program.
So you're saying the very first step basically is stabilizing them.
Stabilize them, yes.
Okay, stabilize them. And then the next thing is what?
Well, the next thing we're doing is we're getting these guys jobs. I mean, we're working with corporations and companies trying to get these people into because a lot of them have poor self-image because they've been homeless. I don't know why I'm homeless. I can't figure out what it is. You got to get them over that. So we go out and try to get them a job as quick as possible so that they can start earning some income, getting themselves back up. We will work with Uber on doing Uber Lyft to get them to and from jobs while they're in a hotel. And then as they start earning money, they pay more of their hotel fee than we start off doing as they're earning income. And then our goal really is to get them, if they need a job. For instance, I had a homeless vet 2 weeks ago. He called us. He's from Florida. His father passed away, which sent him in a tailspin for about a year. He came up to our county looking for help. We had just talked to a company the day before. He was a combat engineer. We got him his resume done on one day. We had a job interview the next day. He got a job offer. We gave him a truck. 2 days after that, he started work on the following Monday. And he's back up. He's great. He's got a disabled daughter who lives in a town up the street. But we took care of him, everything he needed within basically 5 days. And his whole he's mentally turned around. He loves what he's doing now. He's got a great job. He's earning himself. His self-respect is back up. And he wants to help the next guy in line. He wants to pay it forward. Our program, we don't do charity. Everything our guys do is they've earned it because of their federal service. So we tell our guys right away, if you're looking for a handout, go somewhere else. It's not what we do.
Awesome. So I love that you've got the boundaries set, that they know exactly what they're coming into. There's some strong guidelines. I like that you've got a system of, let's create some stabilization. Let's give them it basically you're giving them their dignity by giving them some self-worth by getting a job. And you're getting them transportation so that they are independent, which is awesome. I'm just trying to think of some of the other things. Does anybody have any questions for Jim? I know that Julia was asking what the purpose of this is, and basically what we're doing is we're brainstorming, but we're also doing what we can do within our own little world. Maria, her son, has been doing some donations. People have been giving out water. Renara, I forgot what you had done. You had the Dallas project. You had
No, it's all, actually before I left to Moscow, I was suddenly by the television, I discovered one French company. It is young people, and they, all of them, they are volunteers. And I want to join this movement because actually, I don't know which way, but they found the agreement with all of the supermarket in the France to get the food which was not the limit day,
Right.
the day before the
Coded,
limit
yeah,
day. Yeah,
coded out date, right.
yeah, to feed all the homeless and the students which in the precarity, so they have different way you can help this organization, or you participate. For example, I want to participate and to help physically, but you also can give the donations. So I never heard about them before. It's the first time before I left for Moscow. I just arrived today. So when I know something more, and maybe it will be interesting to share, what they make concretely, every day, actually. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But for me, it was I never heard that before, that you can really take from the big supermarkets here in France. Before it was impossible, Yeah.
Jim, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, well, two things. If your program's set up, one of the things that we find talking to our corporate donors and stuff like that, we don't have any large corporate donors. Most of our money stays here. Comes from local, mom and pops, things like that, fundraisers we do, and we got a couple coming up. But if you have the ability to create newsletters and telling people what it is you're doing, people want to know that. People are skeptical about if you watch the Red Cross, for example, what happened a couple of years ago with the storms they had. They've got about 12 embezzlement cases right now that they're dealing with, and people are afraid. They want to give to a local organization. They're tired of giving to a corporate one that money, they have no idea where the money goes. And United Way is also an example of that one. They get, they basically get hundreds of millions of dollars from corporations, and they do it. And, no one really knows where the money goes and other programs. The other thing you've got is, if you're looking for technology, use Facebook. Facebook doesn't cost you anything to set up. Running a website and keeping it updated is always a pain in the back end. But Facebook is every day people coming in, looking, seeing what you're doing. So, put articles out there. I stay away from Twitter and Instagram because no one's watching that in our space. But people really like the Facebook when something happens. You put a story out there and somebody you helped. That's what they want to see. If they see you're doing things for people, they will give to your program. But you got to stay in front of people and tell them what it is you're doing.
That's awesome. That's exactly what it is. So we have had an author on our call. I'm trying to remember the name of the book, Small Town, Big Problems, Solutions. And he was talking about the very first step is to humanize. The next step is to stabilize, and the next one is to self-actualize. And Jim's organization goes through each one of those. But I know that, coming back to the food, I know there's another person in Georgia that I've talked with that has agreements with Costco, and I think it's not Whole Foods. It's a food distribution. It's a large food distribution across the nation, and he comes in and gets the food, and he just distributes it. And Andrea works with the different Trader Joe's to be able to distribute food. So there's a lot of different organizations that can help with the distribution of food. Jim, do you have organizations that you work with on that level?
Yeah, we have partnerships with Target and Kroger and Publix. So what a lot of these companies do is they will, if you look at Publix, for instance, Publix supports a lot of your local food banks, but their local guys, if they can somehow give you the food here, Panera Bread gives us day old bread. So things that you don't think would normally do. If you go to restaurants out there, and I was doing a project for the city of Atlanta years ago in restaurants, They love to give food away. Right now, it's a tough one to do. There's a thing called the Good Samaritan law you need to look into. Because again, the big concern with corporations giving food that's, that's already pre-cooked is if somebody gets sick, who's liable. That's where the Good Samaritan law was created for, to do that. So, but go to your restaurants and see what they have left over. Panera Bread probably has 15, 20 loaves of bread a night that they've overbaked, and they would normally throw it out if someone didn't take it. So, there are organizations do that. You'll find that grocery stores can only give away certain things. They'll give you water, milk, meats. They tend to, they'll tell them to render it for dog food and things like that. But, if they're getting close to dates on canned goods, that's what you want. If you can get canned goods that have pop tops like soups, that's what people need. Because again, when you're thinking about people out there you got to feed, how many people have got can openers to open the food they get? So you gotta make sure you're giving them. You want to basically under promise and over deliver, because most of these homeless people you talk to have been lied to, have been promised things that never came true. So you're just another person they're gonna look at and saying, at what point is this person gonna disappoint me by not following through?
That makes a lot of sense. Bernard, did that answer any of your questions, or did that support what you were looking into? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. I actually also, what was interesting, what I found with them, that, there are for example, the different feast in different area. And in this kind of feast, the people, many commercial, they sell the food. Yeah, but they can't sell all the food. So there are the volunteers which are present at all this kind of feast, and all the food which was not sold, yeah, they take for the homeless and for the students also. It's not only from the stores, from the supermarkets, but also from the places. Like I don't know how it is in English in United States, where when it was like a rodeo, for example, where they sell the different kind of food, the soup and etc. And they just can't sell everything,
So is it
And
like a buffet? Is that what you're talking
yeah,
about? Like
something like that, but
like a buffet?
in different places of the big area, yeah,
Yep.
So that for me also it was something, the first time I heard about that were the volunteers which going there and stay until the end and gather everything, like an agreement with the commercials. So that's also the source for the food.
Yeah. Well, I know that one of the bigger problems that I think that Andrea had was that once she started getting the food, she went to the organizations, got the food, and they said, you have to promise that you distribute this. And she started to distribute it. But then the corporations had so much food, she had to find more people to give it to, because there was so much available that people weren't able, she had to find people to go to. Jim, have you had experience with something like that?
Yeah, we've partnered with a couple other ones. Because when you get into, exactly what you're talking to is people on those things are setting expectations. If you come up to pick up the food one time, you're going to take everything going forward. So if you can find partners at other organizations that do food banks that you can, that take extra food, like we have one right now, we just started working with called Breakage Chains. They're feeding about 300 people a day. And we get big number 10 cans of stuff we can't use because we're more of mobile, getting families and individuals going. We can't handle the big prepared food, so we give them that food to them. So if you get stuff like that, look for other partners to come to. But it is all about setting expectations with the people you're working with. If you start taking it from them, they're going to expect that you can handle it, and you've got the trucks and the transportation and the materials to get out.
Yeah. That the other person that works here in Georgia that is doing the food distribution, his very first run, what he did was went and rented some refrigeration trucks, and he went and loaded it all up and he started to distribute it, but there was so much food and they didn't have enough freezers to place the food in, and they didn't have enough people to give the food to. So, so that was a really big eye opener for him. And he had to learn how to, well, he started partnering with churches so that he had other places to be able to take the food. And that's what they're doing right here in Atlanta still. So
Mhm.
awesome.
All right,
Larry,
I've got to jump off. I got a call coming up at 4. So,
Jim,
but
thank
anybody
you
any
so much.
questions? Anybody any questions? Please get a hold of us. We're on Facebook, Cherokee County Homeless Veterans Program. You'll find us on Facebook. You see the things we do. We are actually we provide nonprofit support for other nonprofits in the county through some of the corporate contacts we have. And that's something you'll see on there as well. We just gave away a bunch of paper products, furniture. We do all sorts of stuff. But again, my team is 100% volunteers. I don't have a single person that's paid on staff. And we like it that way because it's we want to make sure people are motivated for what we're doing. But again, everyone that we service, we tell them at some point in time, we expect them to pay it forward.
What a beautiful idea. What a beautiful idea. Well, Jim, we so appreciate your time. We can tell that you're
my
so
pleasure.
busy.
All right.
I love
Thanks,
that.
everybody.
Thank you. We'll see you later. So I hope that you guys found that valuable. I mean, you can
Yeah.
tell that he has been doing this a while. He knows, I mean, a lot of times we get on the calls and we don't know what to do. We don't know what to say, where to go. And he's an expert. So that was my commitment. When we got off the call last time, my commitment was to talk to somebody so that I knew what to do. And, to be honest, making a couple of backpacks and being able to hand that out, I can do that. That's something that I can do. It may be very small, but I can do that. I would love to hear from you guys. Would love to hear from you. Larry.
Well, I've been bothering Ralph. Ralph, what do you think?
I think you can keep bothering him because I think he likes it.
Well, here in Los Angeles, we have an organization called the West Hollywood Food Coalition, which is basically, they go to all the restaurants, Trader Joe's, Panera's, and they serve the homeless 7 days a week. I don't know if they are still using the same location that they use here in LA, but I think I made mention about them. They get food from the restaurants and they serve it. The next day they'll go to Wolfgang Puck and some of the restaurants like that, and serve the food to the homeless the next day. They give out the pastries, the fruits, the breads and whatnot that they can gather from wherever they can gather. And once a week they have the UCLA Mobile Health RV will come and examine the homeless people that have any modalities or underlying conditions, health conditions. So, and then I don't know who this guy is, but I see him when I go to the gym in the mornings. Well, when I'm finished, probably in the afternoon, he has this huge truck and he loads up all of the produce and breads and whatnot from Trader Joe's down in Hollywood. I don't know if he's with the church or what organization he's with, but they load him up every morning or early afternoon with a truckload of items. That's all I gotta say. How you doing, Larry?
I'm good, but part of my approach, Ralph is so good with everything about herbs that I keep helping him to educate himself along those lines. So now you can go treat everybody else.
Yeah. This book is like, the more I get into it, like it's it's written 4,500 years ago, but a lot of it is like prominent today, makes a lot of sense today. A lot of sense. Especially when you start talking about food and preparation of food. I mean, it really hits home with that.
So Ralph, can you enlighten me on what you're talking about?
It's the book that Larry blessed me with. It was written 4,000 years ago. It's the Essentials of Ayurveda Volume 1. It's one of our textbooks that we use in all of our classes. And it covers everything from the dhatus to the strotas. I mean, everything that you can imagine. Yoga. They have a section where it's what is it called? From the Bhagavad Gita. They have, like certain things that are, like said, like for instance, what's going on in your mind, what causes disease, you know. It's like little herbs, little things which relate to causing diseases in our bodies and whatnot and in our minds. It's a very some esoterical information in here too, dealing with health. I don't know if that explained it well enough for you. I would have to really, talk to you a little more in depth about that.
Well, it sounds to me like it is a very complete guide of Ayurveda from the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional.
Yeah, it is.
So it sounds like it's very complete.
Yeah, and then they, I think I shared something on Facebook about women, and Maria wanted me to share more, but like the one aspect of it was so doggone long. I mean, it was like almost about 2 pages regarding men and women. It talks about relationships too, talks about how precious women are, that they are the mother of our civilization. Without them, we wouldn't have a civilization. We wouldn't have some of the leaders that we have and some of the famous people that are walking around on this planet, contributing in major ways and in small ways, like Jim, for instance. Without a woman, nothing would exist like that.
Well, yeah, that's Dr. Naram would always say that he loved the Shakti, so he loved the women, because they have the Shakti, they're the creators.
Yeah,
So,
they
yeah.
are. They are the creators of our leaders, of our spiritual leaders, of our healers, and everybody. Be they male or female, doesn't make any difference. So that part of the book is like, I got to figure out how to share that, but it's real long. I mean, it's long.
Well, I don't know about you, but whenever I need to share something, I always have to read it like 25 times before I get it in my mind so that I can actually communicate it logically and intelligently.
Yeah.
So,
Because in class, I think our class is over with since we got exams, but we did some extensive studies on some on migraine headaches and all this. I mean, migraines, diabetes, you name it. I mean, we did a
wow.
lot of extensive studies on it.
So, Larry, what was the thought behind you gifting Ralph the book?
Well, I know that Ralph can put it to good use. And actually, there were a number of books you were having a hard time finding, but I like big pipe wrenches and I like books. So I know how to find books, and I've found all of these books that Ralph couldn't find, and he has the first one in hand, and the others are coming. Some from the other side of the world, but Ralph. All the info is coming because Ralph will put it to very good use. And of course, Ralph, not to promote too much, but he's working on his own book too, which is great fun. You get the story out.
Yeah, it's fun because some of the stories that Jim shared, like I've had firsthand experience with some of these people, especially with Trader Joe's. I think I told Jayna about that one guy that hides out behind the dumpster at night before Trader Joe's closes, and as they bring out like sandwiches and other items that might be 1 day old, and they put him in the dumpster. He goes and gets him out, and security guard knows that he does at night and just leaves him alone, just lets him get bags and bags of food. So he gets the food for him and his girlfriend, and he just gives it out to other people that he knows, and I think they stay down in the viaduct. He hands it out to them, so they'll have foods and whatnot. There's no drinks, no alcohol, and no waters or anything. It's just like, sandwiches that are still edible. They're still cold. Dips that are still, like hummus, chips and stuff that they just throw out, haven't been opened or anything.
You touched on something that I found very interesting, is you touched on the fact that he gathers them up and then he takes them out and distributes them to other people.
Yeah,
So-
as much as he can, as much as he can carry with him, because he's on a bicycle, and like you'll see him with just bags on the handlebars, like the plastic bags, and they'll just be dead full with food. I talk to him occasionally when I run into him, but he keeps enough for him and his girlfriend, so they'll have food for maybe, for that night. Then the next day he does the same thing all over again the next night. He goes around there about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, just before they gate it up so that so that he can't get in there. But at least the security guard knows him and knows what he's doing, and he just leaves him alone. Doesn't bother him.
I think that's a very kind-hearted gentleman. I do. Chris, did you have anything you'd like to share with us today?
No, just listening and getting ideas for going forward. So thank you everyone for what you've shared. It's great information, and just good to see everybody on here.
It's good to see you too. I so appreciate you joining us. So appreciate it. Bridget, how about you? Oh, you're muted, sweetie. Oops. Oh, mute. Can you unmute?
I've been making homeless dolls. And so these are my dolls to give to, right now, we live in such a rural area. So as you can see, I have some work to do here, but I'm going to give it to policemen to keep in the back of their cars, because I'm thinking of children who are maybe traumatized or on the verge of maybe even going to a foster home. So I'm just starting small.
It's so perfect. I worked with an insurance agency that's one of the agents would collect stuffed animals throughout the year. And that's exactly what they did, is at the end of the year, they would take them to the police station to be able to give to the children who were being taken away from their homes. So
And
it's beautiful.
I can tell you this does work, and I'm going to get teary-eyed like you do, Jayna, but you're just such a beautiful person. But my granddaughter was here a few weeks ago, and she got an owie, and she was really crying. So I had 2 of these that I was working on, and boy, she just hugged him, and it just illustrated to me that I'm doing the right thing. I feel the love in these. I put the love in these when I make them. So yeah, thank you.
It's so beautiful, Bridget. Thank you so much. It's, we were talking, Larry was, giving those books to Ralph, and we're talking about where does the disease come from? And it comes from that emotional challenge or unresolved emotion and childhood trauma. And so you think about the trauma that's experienced, in a situation like that, and you are helping them, Bridget, be able to help them calm some of those emotions and be able to give a little bit of love in a horrendous situation. So hopefully it won't be as bad as they get older. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lynn, we love hearing from you. Are you able to unmute today?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello. How are you, Jayna?
I am good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm just listening and taking in everything that's been said so far. And as usual, I have a lot of gratitude for all of you, and the fact that you're here doing this meeting and this call. And there's lots to say, I feel. And it's difficult to hold back to because there's so much to say. But I think a couple of things that I wanted to just speak from my experience. One is that from what I heard, there's like different kinds of people who are homeless. Like, like even within homeless communities, there are privileged and underprivileged homeless communities. So, for instance, in places like, let's say, the US or the UK, this conversation that a homeless person must have a phone, this is a conversation, and it is recognized. Whereas in a place like India, for instance, just the levels of poverty are different, and the country is looked at as quote unquote a third world country. So even the idea that a homeless person needs a phone is a new idea. Like, it's not yet in that list of things that is required. And therefore, when there are people who are homeless and who are seen with a phone, people in the gated communities and the societies and the housing societies, they look at them with distrust. If you have a phone, it means you can access other resources. It means you can get 400 500 rupees for a meal. So then why are you out on the streets begging or homeless? So the levels of distrust are different, and we have to deal with like different kinds of distrust across the board. So I feel like for me personally as a worker, it's it's infuriating and frustrating. I think to me, like, people are homeless are not the problem. Like, the problem, quote unquote, the problem lies within the mindset of the people who are privileged, like who have all the access to the resources. And I'm sorry to say this, but I feel that it needs to be said, because we do give a lot of voice and space to, for people to say that homeless people are lazy and they don't work and they're just there, and, um, nobody's going to give you handouts. And so we also then need to make space for the other voice, which is of homeless people saying that, no, we are hardworking, we are not lazy. Sometimes we are 60 70-year-old women who've been thrown out of our homes, and sometimes we've been raped and we've been abused and we're on the street. And therefore we cannot get up and wear clean clothes. It's not a choice to you know to choose not to wear clean clothes. It's because somebody really cannot get up to wear clean clothes. And I think we need to have that empathy and, like, to understand what it means to be that person on the street. Like, that person on the street is there on the street because there are public policies which make people poor. It's not their fault. It's the fault of the systems and the governments and the larger communities which have access to all the resources. And I'm sorry, I'm being really, like, loud and vociferous in saying this, but I feel it needs to be said, because otherwise, we are just criminalizing people who are poor. It's not their fault. And we're also refusing to understand what brings them there. What brings them there is actions of people who are in positions of power, who choose to put money to, let's say, military budgets to, like, bomb countries, but do not choose to put money into programs for child welfare or programs for old age welfare. So that's the system that we are working within. And I have a lot of as you can see, anger about it, but also just an understanding that, for me, this is the block is this mindset which consistently tries to find fault with the poor. And to me, the poor are the most compassionate people that I have met, even in their poverty. And I keep saying this, even in their poverty, they know only to give mostly, and they try to give. Like, I think one of the things that really has moved me is, I think I've said it before here once, I'm not sure, but like a woman who I met, who, she would always find something to give me out of her situation of poverty when she would meet me, like, just out of regard, that Atiti Devo Bhava regard, that you help you treat the guest as God. and always find something to give me. And like one day that I went to meet her, she had nothing to give me, and so she was looking at me and she's like, she looked around everywhere and she's like, I have nothing to give you today, I have nothing to give you. And I would always just accept what she's giving me out of just being polite. And here she is today, she was looking at me and she's like, I have nothing to give you. And then she looks around and then she looks at me and she says, I can give you a prayer. And she put her hand on my head and she gave me a blessing. And she said a prayer for me. And she said, like, you have all my prayers. And I left from there feeling that, like, whether you have money or you don't have money, you can always give someone a blessing and you can give someone a prayer, you know like. And this has been my experience. And so when I hear these, I would say, extremely unkind things being spoken about people who are homeless, it bothers me and it hurts also, because this, like, we are fighting, for me as a rights worker, I'm fighting this system, like, or we are trying to change this mindset. And I think it's important to get more of these stories out, of the people that we interact with who are homeless. And like, for instance, even brother Ralph, I would say, in these past months, like the last few months since I have interacted with him, I'm sorry, brother Ralph, if I'm allowed to share, like, he's always given me a blessing. And I can assure you, like, the last few months have been so difficult for me personally, like in my work life. And it's, those blessings have just like carried me, I would say. So like, I always wonder, like, who's the person who's giving and who's receiving. And when we're working with homeless communities, that's always what's in our faces, like, we're always receiving more than we're giving. And yeah, that's been my experience, and that's something I cherish. I feel like I would not know kindness, like, I would not know justice, I would not know mercy, I would not know goodness, like what these words really fully mean and their full expression, had I not met these homeless communities, because I feel like their hearts are so big. Sometimes I feel that's what has gotten them into this place of being homeless. That's just my personal view of it, but I feel like these hearts are the richest hearts around. And if we don't recognize that as communities, then we are losing. Like, we're losing, and I do feel that a lot of, like, personally, I would say from my experience, a lot of the mental health conditions and traumas that we see in the people who are rich, in the gated communities and the societies, it's also coming from disconnection from these people you call homeless. If people were meeting more homeless people and homeless communities, experiencing that love, I feel like a lot of the mental health conditions that you see in the gated communities, and those who live in privileged spaces, that would also come down. So this, the segregation that is there between communities, that I feel like that needs to come down. And obviously there is also issues of racial justice and all of that included within this, but I do think that it's really important, even for the health of the people who are rich, to go out there and meet the people who are homeless, because you will see kindness there. And this is not to say that there aren't instances of violence, or there aren't, like some people would say, gang wars and things like that, but that's there everywhere. And to just point out homeless communities for that, and to deny them basic rights, I think is not fair. And the other thing I wanted to say is, like, for me right now, I feel that community is working, in whatever small capacities that we can, is really important. Like, whatever small things we can do. Like, I've been through phases where, like, I don't have a lot of clothes right now. Like, I have like 3-4 pairs of clothes only. I've given most of my clothes to shelters. I had a lot of books, and like when I was 18, 19, I always wanted like a library, full of books. But after a point of just interacting with homeless communities, I felt, what is the point if I'm keeping all these books, like, you know, in a place? Like, where I can read it. So I have given them to communities. I just have like 3-4 books which I use for reference, but they're all like I gave it to community reading spaces so other people can access those books. So this is not to say that like this is what I am doing, but when you interact with homeless people, I feel like they just change your life in specific ways, and you're not the same after that. So this has been part of my journey. But I think right now, what I see from where I stand, like the community initiatives, they are important. Like for instance, in India, the COVID relief that was done by citizens was really important. Otherwise, we would not have gotten through this time. At the same time, I feel it's not enough, because for me now, these are stopgap measures. These are small. Like they are big, but they are still small. And there is a need for larger systems, like legal systems in place. So like my intention or my desire or goal is to have systems in place that will work, you know, even after we are not here. Like let's assume that I'm not here tomorrow to do certain things, like the work should not stop. So like my focus right now, a lot of it is on making systems independent of me and ensuring that there are systems which will continue to like recognize that this is not gratis, like this is not charity. Helping a homeless person is not, it's not charity, it's their right. Like we're not just doing people a favor, it is their right, and there need to be legal systems in place. So for instance, I really do feel that there is a need for, and it's the work is happening at certain levels. I think in some countries there is there are proposals like called the rights of unhoused persons bill and all of that, and there is a need for like what I would call a care and protection of destitute and homeless persons act. So once, I think when that is fully in place, uh, what would also need to happen is that a person who is homeless should be the responsibility of the state, that this person is homeless, and they need to be put with their consent, of course, into community shelters or other spaces. If they need medical support, they need to be taken to the nearest medical facility. If they require education support, if they require mental health counseling support, they need to be offered that support. These systems are there right now, but they're not fully there. They are there in pockets. And we also have situations where people are homeless, like they will call 15 such numbers, helplines, and nobody will answer. And so you can imagine a person who's homeless and who's really not in a very good space. If you've made the effort to call 15 people, and if 15 spaces have not answered you, how that would feel. Like you need a lot of resilience to go through this system. And let's say if you're a homeless person in the US, people will still say go to a website, which may seem normal and okay. But if you're in India, I mean, to even suggest to a homeless person go to a website or go to Facebook is completely, is just not part of their reality for a lot of people, because they come from really rural backgrounds or impoverished backgrounds where like access to internet is not possible. So the digital divide is quite vast and deep in that sense. So I would say that there is the need for that act in place, because otherwise, people who are wanting to help themselves, they just become it's like you don't leave them a lot of options. If a person has made that effort to reach out to so many people and gets no help, then the fault is within the system, and it's a systemic issue. So I think apart from that act, the Care and Protection of Destitute Persons Act, there is also a need for what is now called the Universal Basic Income Act. There needs to be that act in place across the world. So again, we recognize that people have a right to a universal basic income. I mean, it'll sound silly, but like a mother does not differentiate between her children, right? She does not offer love she's not biased in the way she offers love. And right now, I think the way systems are, we are continuously, taxing the poor, and we're letting the rich sort of fly off to the moon, as they say, or to the Mars or whatever. So we do need a system where you recognize that poor people have rights, that it's a system that makes them poor. And so the universal basic income, I think, act is very, very essential. And what we've also seen is that the COVID relief programs, a lot of them have really worked in small pockets, and they need to continue, and a lot of the things that Jim was talking about, like the renters eviction, I mean, that is an issue. I also heard that there are people, landlords who can also apply for assistance, but they are not, they're refusing in certain cases, and they're actually putting roadblocks, in the path of renters. And I think it's cruel to do that at a time like this, to put those blocks to people accessing care and justice. And so I think what we do need to work on is changing, I would say, the mindset, which sort of criminalizes the poor. And and the other is these two acts, the Universal Basic Income and the Care and Protection of Destitute Persons Act, besides all the other community work and initiatives that are going on. And like what Brother Ralph was talking about scabies. So like we do have situations like that often, where homeless women and men, like they do come, and like I would say, depending on the situation and the context, firstly, there are many people who don't want to be touched um, when they're homeless, and they don't want to be touched because they have experienced violence often, and so the fear is that you will be an assaulter, and so there is fear of that. So there are many times when, in fact, when I have also, been in situations where I had to bathe women, and like women who cannot speak sometimes because of the violence that they've been through. And they look at you with a lot of fear sometimes, like, are you going to violate them in the same way? And once you assure them, you take their consent, and as you're bathing them, sometimes they're crying because they recognize that you're not violating them the way they have been in the past. So like it's sensitive sometimes, like people don't want to be touched, and we have to be really careful with that, and always take consent, like verbal and non-verbal both. And through the process, like if you're bathing them, then they have the right to deny consent at any point. Like they may be okay with you giving them a head bath, but they may not be okay with you touching their foot, for instance. It may trigger some memory or something, so you have to always be careful with that. And oftentimes, like depending on, of course, a medical doctor's advice, scabies, obviously you need medical treatment, but there are also, like within the Indian Ayurveda systems, there are things that can be done. For instance, you put um, neem leaves in water, either in boiling water or in regular water. You put a little bit of turmeric, in water, and you can bathe people with that water. But again, it needs to be seen that the person doesn't have open wounds. For instance, if they have open wounds, then the neem water can burn. The turmeric can sometimes burn if there are open wounds. And sometimes there are people with unfortunately also with maggots, because they've been on the street for a long time, so they need more treatment. And in those cases, you cannot put turmeric on like an open maggot wound. You have to take them to the hospital, and you have to give them the care that they need. So it's all like, I would say it's very need based, like what each individual person needs, just to respond to that need, and like to treat them as like you would want to be treated, and to not look at them like with distrust. I think what I really want to say, it really does anger me when I sense like distrust towards a person who is homeless. Like I do wonder where it's coming from, like why we as a society are so disconnected, that like our first instinct is to distrust a person who is in need, you know. So yeah, I think, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I think it's out of my system, like the frustration that I had. I think, which was I think it's a trauma response as well. And I think the last thing I want to say is, I think it's really important when we're talking to homeless people or to people who are working with homeless communities. Like oftentimes, I keep saying this, there's a lot of trauma. So people do just also want to be heard, you know. So like, ideally, I would say like interrupting them with questions is often not helpful. It's helpful to just hear what they have to say, you know, and just let them speak, because just the act of speaking can be healing if they're willing to speak, you know. And like as part of like nonviolent communication, I know that in different countries sometimes it's practiced differently, but I think within the Indian context there is also sometimes, you know, there is a way of looking at nonviolent communication where we don't ask questions, because sometimes like the questions are not helpful to the person, you know. Like the questions are helpful to us, like to solve our curiosity. And I think it takes some awareness to come to a point where you sort of figure out whether the question you're asking, is it to, you know, to soothe like one's own curiosity, or is it really helpful to the person. So oftentimes I feel like, especially with homeless people, like they don't like when they're interrupted. Like I like when they're allowed to finish what they have to say, you know, and that we hear them, and the questions are asked in a gentle, like non-intrusive way, you know, like because like they don't owe us any answers, you know. So like I think it's really important to be mindful when we ask a homeless person questions, that like they have the right to not answer. So in the way we ask questions, it has to be, I feel like, respectful of, you know, their space. Like they don't owe us anything. Like so yeah, and I think sometimes that communication itself can become violent, you know, like when you go to talk to a homeless person to solve, quote unquote, solve their problem, like we want to know everything about them, like their history, where they've been and what they've been doing, and so why are you here, and you know, like what happened with your daughter. Like no, like I would say like avoid asking too many intrusive questions. Like wait to hear what the person has to say and what they have to offer. And you know, if you feel like there is consent, then ask, but not to ask questions just for our own curiosity, but to really to respond to the needs of the person before us. And I think listening is very important in that, you know, because like I said, just the act of sharing can be healing sometimes. So to give the person like an uninterrupted like listen, just that itself can change so much for the person. So yeah, that was my piece. And I want to thank you all for receiving what I am saying, also for witnessing like my anger and frustration, and you know, being like non-judgmental witnesses to it. Thank you. Yeah, I'm done. Done for now.
Lynn, I love your heart. Everything that you said, I mean, I had things written down to be able to respond to, but I think that they were because of my own healing. Everything that you said was extremely profound and so spot on. Homelessness is such a large problem on so many levels that we have to take it from where we are. You know, you were talking about changing bills and legislation, and to me that terrifies me. But for you, it may not. For you, it may be something very simple. I mean, just like Jim, I'm amazed at what Jim has done. He is a civic engineer. No, he's not a civil engineer, but he's an engineer. I can't remember what kind of engineer he was, but you can tell that he's got the mechanics of how things work and how to put structure in place for his program. Now that doesn't work. If we took his program and put it in India, it wouldn't work. But it works where he is, and in this county, in this government, and in this environment. And it's exactly where it needs, where he needs to be. And that's what this call is about. This call is about being able to hear ideas, to be able to see opportunities and possibilities, so that we can internally identify what it is that will work for us to be able to serve and give, whether it be in the homeless community, whether it be in the crime community, whether it be in, children or foster care or housing. There's so many different areas of humanitarian work, and sometimes they overlap. But that's what this is about. I really loved how Julia said, what is the purpose of this call? Being that she is, she hasn't been on some of the other calls. It was really very eye-opening to me that I didn't establish that in the very beginning. And I take note of that. Anyway, I know that the time has come where we need to get off the call, but Ralph, is there anything that you want to say in finishing up?
I think Lynn basically said a lot, you know. But politicians are like, they're the best actors in the world and the best liars in the world. So you can't really depend on them too much. And every community is different. I think you have to treat homelessness different in every community, large and small. You have to kind of feel your way around and see what's the best solution for every area that you're in. That's all I have to say.
That's awesome. Just one final thing. Lynn, you brought up so many things that reminded me of Dr. Naram, specifically when that lady said that she had nothing to give, and that she did give a prayer, a blessing, giving a smile, giving a silent prayer, giving a hug, just even a human touch or eye-to-eye contact sometimes is enough, but in some of the interactions with the people in the community, specifically the 100-day program, I remember that many of the doctors that were trained by Dr. Naram would say Dr. Naram was a giver. He always had his pockets full of little coins or rings or bracelets to be able to give to anybody. He had biscuits for dogs, and he had little bits of food if he needed to give to somebody who was ever in need. He's a giver, and that's part of us as humanity. I think it's a part of what we need to be to feel fulfilled, and what we need to have in order to have a quality of life. And I think that that's what draws us to these calls. So thank you for reminding us of that, Lynn. Thank you so much for everybody who has been on the call. I can't name them all right now. My brain is a little, but thank you, Ralph and Renara and Bridget and Lynn, for being on the call with me for this long. And Larry was on the call, and Chris was on the call, and Julia and Jim. And anyway, so thank you very much. And Maria.
Thank you. I would like to also just say that I completely agree with you that it's about finding the local solutions, like what works, like does somebody need a haircut, or just does somebody need fresh clothes? Does somebody need like nail clippers? Like what is the immediate need, and what can you do? And what are you comfortable doing? Like Jayna, I would say it's not about, if you're not yet comfortable with looking at bills and laws, that's fine. I mean, like everybody has their own intuitive path to take. Like I did not start out looking at the laws like right away. I came at it after a point of like, like doing the hands-on work where you realize that certain things are so systemic. And like what Jim was saying, that there's so much of self-esteem issues within homeless communities because they start to think that it is them who are the problem. And when you work within these communities and systems, you realize that it's not they who are the problem, but It's our systems that need to change, you know. So I completely agree with what you said and what Brother Ralph said, that it's about finding, you know, what you can do and really trusting your instinct and going with that, and that really works. Sometimes even just having that intention, like I really think that, you know, if we all intend that, like, homelessness will end you know, by a certain time. And by that I don't mean like that poor people will disappear off the face of the earth like some governments would be happy to have happen, but that, you know, that we really, that everybody gets a home and has food and clothing and shelter, that if we just intend that to happen, that can happen. Like, prayers do work and intentions do work, you know. I did want to say that. And the last thing I wanted to say is that, like, this lady that I met who offered me a prayer, like, at that time I was volunteering with a community. So, you know, they were giving, they were doing like the monthly work, like providing food and providing education support and clothing support and all of that. But what we were told, and I think it was really important to learn that lesson very early, like I think I was 18 or something when I started volunteering with this group. So, you know, they would say that you can always offer people money and clothes and food and all of that, but like what's really important is spending time with people, like, you know. So a lot of the older senior citizens, we would just spend, like, we would go on visits, like just to spend time with them. So I think spending time with people, if you can, you know, just spending some time with people, if you don't have money to offer, like, that's also good, because it's not all about money. Like, you know, I would say money is a new invention, and we've had life before it and we will have life after it, you know. So so I mean, it's about, you know, it's just about community and just interacting with people. And there's so much, literally so much to learn, like from you know, people who have that experience of being an elder. Like, there's so much wisdom that they offer to you. So it's not just like to take from them I think, but just to know that it's, there is an interaction and a community exchange that happens, which really we need as human beings, you know. Like, social interaction is so important. So more than also just offering financial support and all of that, which is essential, also spend time with people if you can, you know. I think, yeah, that's one more thing I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
It's so wonderful. Boy, I had like 12 thoughts and now I can't think of one. I just really enjoy listening to you. You talk. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was, when we first started these calls, homelessness kind of scared me in a little way, in a little bit. You know, a lot of it was because, you know, when my dad was interacting with some of the homeless and they were, you know, not bathed, they probably had, did you call it scabie, Ralph? They probably had that. And I was afraid because I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand what my dad, you know, was doing. And coming to these calls and hearing you guys' experiences and your interactions and your wisdom with this has really helped me to let down some of my guard around it. You know, it was a big step for me to call Jim. You know, I've had his number since April and I hadn't called him. And after the last call, I thought, I'm going to call him. I need to get more educated. And the more educated I become, the less fearful I am. And so, you know, I don't know what my next steps are going to be with in regards to the Humanitarian for the Ancient Secrets, but I know that listening to you, Lynn, has planted a seed in my mind that I possibly can even go bigger. And even Jim, when he was talking about he's working with the county and he's working with the city that he lives in to be able to create a facility for the homeless to come and to live. You know, and a lot of the cities, they don't want the homeless there. And it's a big challenge for him, but just even having him communicate what his dreams were and what they are, it planted a possibility and an insight in my mind of, oh, that is possible. That's, you know, maybe something that I can do. I don't know. I've even thought maybe I should call him and see if I can do some kind of volunteer work with him so that I can kind of get firsthand what is happening in his world. But anyway, so thank you for these calls and thank you for, interacting and just keep on being you. Keep on doing what what your heart is leading you to do. I'm just so excited for you, Renara, and what you discovered with the situation with the food. So, and thank you, Ralph, for all of the education and everything that you give. And Bridget, you always are giving so much with your transcriptions and just your whole heart. So appreciate you. And Lynn, it's beautiful, just so beautiful that I love that you're here and that you've got so much wisdom and knowledge. So I love you and I'm with you.
I love you and I'm with you.
Lots of love, lots of love. And thank you for listening.
Absolutely, anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll see you later.
Love
I-
you and with you. Bye.
Bye.